पाइंदा ताबिंदाबाद शाबाद मंजिले मुराद परचमे सितारा हिला रहबरे तरक्कियों का तर्जुमाने बाजी शाने हाल जाने इस्तकबाल साया-ए खुदाए ज़ुल्जलाल।
Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Fariha Mohsin, and on behalf of the Citizens Foundation San Francisco Bay Area chapter, I'd like to welcome you all to our first virtual information session, Rising Above Barriers. To begin, I would like to thank all of you who have joined us today. I know it's a weekend, it's Saturday morning in my part of the world, and those of you who have joined us from Pakistan, I know it's a little late Saturday night, but let me assure you, the next hour is going to be worth every bit of your time. A little bit about our chapter, SF Bay Area. It was formed in 2003. Of all the veteran supporters, the one person who has been the backbone of this chapter is Mr. Amjad Noorani. Mr. Amjad Noorani, along with his wife, Mrs. Najma, has basically given their heart and soul to this chapter. Their involvement have been extremely instrumental in making sure this chapter remains successful and thriving among other chapters of TCF USA. To date, Bay Area chapter has funded 3 schools. 2 of them are in Sindh, 1 in Punjab, and in addition to those 3 schools that we have funded and built, we are also supporting the operating cost of 6 existing TCF schools. So among all of these 9 schools altogether, SF Bay Area is supporting the education cost of over 1,300 students yearly. And this also becomes part of our chapter's annual fundraising goal. And thanks to the generous donors of the vibrant Silicon Valley, they help us reach this goal every year. And they not only help us reach the goal, but we go above and beyond to make sure that we are keeping the dreams of these 1,300 students. And it's not just the students, it's their families, their whole communities alive. This chapter is now led by Mr. Asif Kidwai, Nadeem Siddiqui, and myself. And we look forward to your continued support in making sure that we grow and build this TCF family in the Bay Area. Our session today is Rising Above Barriers. The aim here is to understand how TCF is not only providing primary and secondary education to the underprivileged children of Pakistan, but it's going one step ahead. It's helping its alumni get tertiary education. Our moderator for today is Mr. Adnan Lavai. Adnan is a CEO at Folio 3, which is a software company headquartered in Bay Area, and it has a back office in Pakistan, employing hundreds of software engineers. Adnan has been involved with TCF since 2009, and he always wanted TCF students to get competitive tertiary education. So he, along with other supporters, formed an organization called Academic Achievement Program, which started post-school classes for English and maths. He has also been involved in establishing TCF College and the Alumni Development Program. So without further ado, I would hand over the mic to Mr. Lavai.
Thank you, Fariha. It's a pleasure to be here. Welcome all of you who have joined us for our San Francisco event. I'm sure we have an excellent set of speakers in front of you. I will be inviting Riaz shortly. We also have some students who have participated in some of the programs. So I just want to get going by inviting Riaz Kamlani, who is part of the leadership at TCF. Riaz, would you please join us?
Assalamu alaikum, Adnan. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good morning, everyone, and good evening, depending on the part of the world that you're in.
Thank you, Riaz. Riaz, to start off with, a lot of people here have heard of TCF, obviously, but they may not know a lot about the history of TCF. So could you briefly tell us about the organization, the goals, and how far you've come so far?
Absolutely, Adnan. And I thought for today's conversation, rather than just you and me conversing, it might be good to pepper that with some photographs and some videos so that we're able to bring a conversation to life. So, if you'd allow me, I'll just switch on something that can help us tell a bit more about how TCF has progressed and the journey that we have had. So we'll just wait for the slide to come on. Wonderful. So to take you back in terms of the TCF history and the story, TCF started back in 95-96. The gentlemen that you see around this table are the founders of TCF. Mushtaq Shah, who's at the head of the table, and on to his left are Ehsan Salim and Ateed Riaz, the three founders who are still very much with us. And they started this movement now almost 25 years ago. Now, I thought I could tell you a bit more on how they started, but on reflection, I thought it might be best to let them tell you how they started and what their mission was. So we have a short video clip where the founders talk about their dreams and aspirations when they started the organization and what is it that they were aiming for.
A group of friends and we were all sitting around the table deciding on what is the best thing we can do for these children who go around the streets, whom we meet at traffic lights on crowded city streets, not knowing where they came from. This is one such neighborhood where you now see children from the TCF program walking around, getting ready to go to school. We chose for ourselves a difficult model, which is of making small primary schools and taking them to the heart of the neighborhood rather than having a large school for 4,000 or 5,000 children.
We shared one thing in common, which was that we were all fed up with the state of affairs in the country. We one day decided that we will either be a part of the problem and just sit back and enjoy ourselves, or get together and do something to change the situation.
From the inception, from the word go, I think we wanted to keep a target or a goal which was over-ambitious. Finally, everybody agreed that if we keep a target which seems to be an impossible target, then inshallah ta'ala we will achieve something. We didn't know at that point in time what, but we said yes, if the goal is large enough and big enough, that really looks something which people should take seriously.
We want to dream for them what their parents have not been able to dream for them, what our governments have not been able to give to them. But these children should also have dreams, and we should dream for them.
As my colleagues and my founders say, that we are mad. We have a streak of madness, and that is what is keeping us going. In the years to come, we want to see that no child in Pakistan does not get an opportunity to get educated, to go into a school.
You have to believe in education being the answer to a brighter, happier, more prosperous Pakistan. One educated person can change the world.
So this was a background in the words of the founders themselves. And I have been engaged with the organization for now a little over a decade, and I've had a ringside seat to see them operating and to see how the organization has grown. So they essentially came up with this model, came up with this thought, and put their own money to put the first 5 school units up. And the dream was 1,000 schools. As Mushtaq Saab said, we wanted to dream something big. Those 5 school units have now turned into 1,600. Those 700 students have now turned to 266,000. These 1,652 purpose-built units are spread all across the country. The one that you see here is built up in the mountains, which we built after the earthquake. So these are earthquake-resistant structures. The network is right across the, as you can see here, all 4 provinces, Kashmir, it is a national network. And that was the aim, that this will not be something that will be focused on one province or one territory. This is a problem of the whole of Pakistan. And therefore, TCF will be a pan-Pakistan. We'll work in every corner of Pakistan. By design, all of our schools are purpose-built. So these are not rented premises. These are TCF-owned, built for the purpose of education, and therefore to the specification on how classrooms should be, how playgrounds should be, how a learning space should be structured. These are embedded in the heart of communities. So our schools are, all of them are either in backward rural areas or in urban slums. For example, if you go in Karachi, most Karachiites may have seen a couple of TCF schools at best, but there are about more than 300 units in Karachi. The reason why they are not seen is because they are embedded in the heart of the communities. Our whole aim is that the child, particularly the girl child, should be able to walk to school, because that's one major deterrent for the girl child, because of which she can't get education. So these are embedded in the heart of communities, no matter where in Pakistan you go across. By design, we have an all-female faculty. We are the single largest employer of women in the private sector in Pakistan, with over 13,000 female faculty. All the school leaders, all the teachers, they're all women. So men like myself are a bit of an exception at TCF. The Economist calls TCF the largest network of independently run schools in the world, as well as what I just said, the largest private sector employer of women. And our gender ratio is 50-50. From inception, when we had 700 kids, it was 50-50. Now with 266,000, alhamdulillah, it continues to be 50-50. So this is not just educating the boys of Pakistan, this is educating the children of Pakistan, boys and girls equally. Of the children who have completed their matriculation, 64% on an average year, 60-odd% complete their matric with an A grade or better. And you find our students, mashallah, now entering into a whole raft of professional careers. But just as an upshot, 88% of the alumni who do their matric, i.e. grade 10 from TCF, continue their education beyond grade 10. And 71% of the alumni who are aged 22 years plus are working, and another 15% are still studying. So it is not that at the end of grade 10, the journey stops, but for a vast majority of them, the journey continues. So now I know you've been associated with the organization for a long time, so this won't be news to you and many others, but this is a quick snapshot of where we are coming from and where we stand.
Thank you, Riaz. It's truly an inspirational vision. I remember when I moved back to Pakistan in 2006, the first time I visited a TCF school, I think it was in 2008. We met for the first time then, Riaz. And I remember going to a TCF school and being so impressed. It looked, the facilities, you talked about the fact that they're custom built. The school looked very, very similar to the kind of school that I had gone to. I had gone to St. Patrick's High School in Karachi. And when I went there, when I saw the school, the facilities, the students, the discipline, the teachers, I was just blown away. I was like, wow, you know? And the natural question that came to my mind at that point, Riaz, was that me and my fellow students who went to St. Patrick's did very, very well. At that point, we were all pursuing very successful careers throughout the world. We were spread all over the world. We had gone to some of the best universities in the world, both in Pakistan as well as outside Pakistan. And the question I remember, I came to you, Riaz, and I said, how many of these students are going to the top universities in Pakistan and the world? And what would it take to get a lot of these students to the MITs, the Caltechs, the Stanfords, the Harvards of this world? And the response I got was a little bit disappointing at that time. I think you were in a different phase of development at TCF. But what happened after that, I think, is continuing to be inspirational. So Riaz, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the tertiary education programs at TCF and the alumni development program in particular?
Absolutely, Adnan. As a fellow patrician, I completely understand where you're coming from when you say the kind of schools that we went to. And I distinctly remember our first conversation back in 2008 when you and your friends came over and asked that question. And I think that's a question that was asked of us at that point in time by many other supporters, or at least some other very invested supporters. And honestly, it's been a journey. So TCF metric graduates started coming out really around 2004-5. And it was around that time of 2008-9 that we really began, so to speak, scratching our heads to say, what next? Where do we go? And I thought, as we were preparing for this particular conversation, as I was reflecting back, essentially this whole work that we have done with alumni for us is broken down, broadly speaking, into 3 phases of 5 years each. The first phase is from 2004 to 9. That's when we met, and that's where you're rightly saying that you were partly disappointed because we have that much of a clue on exactly what we wanted to do with it. We had that our aim was to help children complete their metric, but beyond that, do we have a role for them to continue high school? Do you have a particular role to take them to university? And the numbers reflect themselves. Our intermediate enrollment was about 2/3, which meant 1/3 of the students weren't continuing with their university, with their high school, and our university transition was less than 10%. And these were numbers that were happening without much effort on TCF's part. So I think that's what galvanized us, conversations with yourself and many others like you who challenged us, who pushed us to think about that. And we worked at it. And in that phase 1, at that point in time, let's say starting 2009, there were 3 particular responses that we came up with. The first one was that the students needed our help to continue their education in grade 11 and 12, which in Pakistan is called intermediate, in the US that's called high school. Secondly, we weren't connected, that closely connected with the alumni. So we need to establish a program through which we could maintain that connection. And lastly, a program by the name of Alumni Development Program, ADP, began. And I'll tell you a bit more, which will define what ADP is. But I thought I'll just give you a sense on what happened in this phase on all these 3 bits. So the first bit is really the initiation of intermediate program. We began our outreach. We started going to schools. We started engaging with children to say what is it that they want to do. And we discovered that there were many basic hassles. A kid residing in an urban slum or in a far enough rural area may not have immediate knowledge of what's the closest high school, may not know what kind of forms to fill, may not know what kind of supplementary documentation is required. Started that pathway to help them. Then Standard Chartered came in. Standard Chartered Bank came in back in 2008-9, and we needed funding to be able to help these children, to pay for the transport costs, to pay for the books, to pay for the examination fees, which came to something like 15,000 rupees per student per year at that point in time. Standard Chartered helped us and gave us starting with 400 and going up to 1,200 scholarships. And these are some pictures from back in 2009-10 of our students benefiting from that scholarship program. Here you see the leadership of Standard Chartered at that point in time with our students. So that was the initial throes of that program. As we started that intermediate program, the second recognition was that the principal, some of the teachers may know the whereabouts of the students, but we as an organizational level don't quite have a strong enough handle on it. And we said we must do something about it. So what we started was an effort for connecting with alumni. I think one of the blessings that we have at TCF, alhamdulillah, is that we have a very bright young team, and they got cracking. They not only capitalized on the network of the community that was present from the school, but they WhatsApp, Facebook, established a call center, and really went out to try to get as many alumni into our fold as possible. So that was the first piece where we really, did an outreach in that sense. The second aspect also was that through events, we wanted to connect the alumni to what the organization was about, but particularly the founders. So here I'm sharing with you an example of one of the events that we did, where we called the alumni in to meet the founders. A memorable event at that. It was, around August time, so we were celebrating 14th August alongside. So you'd see this group of youngsters, largely in green and white, coming through. We had a session with the founders, where the founders, sat with all of these students and spoke about their journey. Spoke about what it means to them to see all of them in front of them, and what their dreams and aspirations are for TCF and for society. We had a lovely evening under an open sky in Karachi, as you can see probably from this photo. And the students got to engage with the founders on a very close one-on-one basis. And I think it's through activities like this that we really got alumni to understand TCF better and to become, hopefully, inshallah, the next group of owners of this organization. Um, by virtue of all this outreach, these kind of events, where we have reached, alhamdulillah, is that we have 30 odd thousand students who have completed the grade 10 from TCF, and delighted to say that today we are connected to 90% of them. And that was a real achievement for us. So this was just a glimpse on the first two things, on how we started the effort to ensure that the children continue their education, and then what we did on ensuring that they remained connected. The next part that I'd like to talk about is this alumni development program, a term which was not coined by TCF, in which none of the central administration was involved. This young man, Nadeem Hussain, he was one of our earlier graduates. He graduated from a TCF school, did it high school, got into IB Institute of Business Administration on merit, and started studying there. And as he started studying there, what he saw was that there were undergrad students like him, of his age, who were not TCF alumnus, but who were wanting to contribute as volunteers. He could see that these volunteers could really help TCF students get into a university like IBA if he could just bring the two of them together. If the TCF students could simply be bussed into an IBA campus, these students in their free time can teach the TCF alumni and help them get into universities like IBA. So this was his initiative, and I think, again, rather than describing the initiative in my own words, I think it would be better to listen from Nadeem himself on what he did and how he did it.
वहाँ पे बहुत कुछ ज़्यादा होता नहीं है ख्वाब देखने के लिए। ख्वाब उन चीज़ों के देखते हैं जो आपने पहले कभी देखी हो कहीं। इलाके में ऐसे लोग भी नहीं होते। आप इलाके में देखते हैं जो मर्द हजरात हैं वो मजदूरी के लिए सुबह जाते हैं, रात को आते हैं, रात को जाते हैं, सुबह आते हैं। और कच्ची आबादी है, ख़वातीन जो हैं वो घरों में काम करती हैं, शहरों से सिलाई के कपड़े ले आती हैं, वो सिलाई करती हैं।
आपके वालिद साहब के लिए सबसे खुशी का दिन कौन सा था?
मैंने अपने वालिद की आंखों में जो सबसे ज़्यादा खुशी और चमक देखी वो उस दिन देखी जब मैं घर गया और उन्होंने मुझे बताया कि जिस फैक्ट्री में वो पिछले 35 साल से मजदूरी कर रहे हैं, उस फैक्ट्री के जो मालिक हैं उन्होंने उन्हें बताया कि वो जिस यूनिवर्सिटी में मैं पढ़ता हूँ उस यूनिवर्सिटी में उनकी बेटी का भी दाखिला हुआ है। तो मेरे वालिद के लिए ये बहुत ज़्यादा खुशी की बात थी कि वो कभी इस चीज़ का तसव्वुर भी नहीं कर सकते थे। मेरे बैच में कराची, लाहौर, इस्लामाबाद के सुपर एलीट स्कूल्स के बच्चे थे। कराची ग्रामर स्कूल, निक्सर, लाइसियम, HSN, रूट्स, इस्लामाबाद, और उनमें बहुत सारे लोग ऐसे थे जो बात करते थे, मदद करते थे, एकेडमिकली, सोशली एडजस्ट होने में मदद करते थे। लेकिन कुछ लोग ऐसे थे जो बात नहीं करते थे, वो हमें एक दूसरी दुनिया का बासी समझते थे। सो दैट वाज द टाइम व्हेन आई एक्चुअली रियलाइज्ड कि दिस इज़ हाउ TCF हैज़ रिमूव्ड द बैरियर ऑफ क्लास एंड प्रिविलेज फ्रॉम माई लाइफ। एक फैक्ट्री जहाँ पे मेरे वालिद साहब पिछले 35 साल से मजदूर थे, और उसी फैक्ट्री के जो मालिक थे उनकी बेटी और मैं एक ही इदारे में, एक ही क्लासरूम में, एक ही उस्ताद से सेम कोर्स पढ़ रहे थे।
जो लोग ये वीडियो देख रहे हैं और TCF ADP को हेल्प करना चाहते हैं, वो किस तरह हेल्प कर सकते हैं आपको?
ऐसे बच्चे को जो शायद यूनिवर्सिटी की दाखिला फीस ही नहीं दे सकता और आपके 5,000 की कंट्रीब्यूशन से वो यूनिवर्सिटी के टेस्ट की फीस दे सके, और फिर किसी और साहब की कंट्रीब्यूशन से वो उस यूनिवर्सिटी में पढ़ सके, तो इट वुड नॉट जस्ट चेंज वन लाइफ और वन फैमिलीज लाइफ बट द लाइफ ऑफ दैट एंटायर स्लम। उस पूरी कच्ची आबादी में अगर एक बच्चा भी किसी बेहतर यूनिवर्सिटी में चला गया तो आप यकीन मानिए वो उस इलाके के दीगर बहुत सारे बच्चों को ऐसी यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में जाने में मदद कर सकेगा।
So I hope this gives you a sense for what Nadim's story was. So here was this young man who, out of his own initiative, established this program. And at IBA, he got the faculty, the dean involved, and put up the first chapter, whereby TCF students would bus themselves in at the IBA University campus. He mobilized volunteers at IBA who would be able to either come to the TCF schools, as you see in that picture, to be able to teach, or TCF students will come to IBA, and sitting on the lawn here, a class would be conducted whereby IBA students would be taught by undergrad students of IBA, where TCF students would be taught by undergrad students of IBA, so that they can appear for the test and be successful in that. This is one of my favorite pictures. This is a group of office bearers, so to speak, of the Alumni Development Program who came up at that point in time. And these are the early flag bearers who really established the foundations of this program along with the dean. And as a consequence of all of that, this is how we transitioned. So in that period, in the second phase of 2010 to 14, compared to the first phase of 2004 to 9, we had over 8,000 metric graduates, but our intermediate enrollment, because of the program, ramped up from 68 to 77%, and the university transition, because of the first impact of Alumni Development Program coming through, went up from 9 to 12%. But those are numbers, and I think it's important to get the story behind the numbers. And for that, I'd like to introduce a young man who's with us today, Asad Sajid. Asad was one of the first students who was part of the Alumni Development Program. He has been a product of the Alumni Development Program, then he has been a volunteer teacher at the Alumni Development Program, and then also has been a team leader of the program. So without further ado, would like to introduce Asad to come in and have a chat.
Asad, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Welcome, Asad. So, Asad, we'd like to get to know your story a little bit better today. So let's start with where you are today. What are you doing right now?
I currently work as a software engineer in data analytics department of Affinity. Affinity is an AI company that does behavioral pairing. I work at the Brazil region. I'm assigned at the Brazil region, and I work for one of the top telecommunication clients in Brazil. I help them prepare data insight reports for their business operating units.
Wonderful. So doing really well in life, doing a 21st century job using data and machine learning and so on. So tell us a little bit about your story. So let's start with how you got here. Tell us a little bit about your family background and the beginning of your journey through TCF. How did you start with TCF?
So to start that, I live at Old Muzaffarabad Colony, Landhi. It's an urban slum of Karachi. To give you an idea of the demographics, most of the adults here work at either the export processing zone or the factories at Korangi. So my father is a project officer at PIA. My mother is a housewife. My siblings either have studied or are studying from TCF. I've spent a good share of my education life at TCF, 8 good years. I was admitted in TCF from 3rd standard, and I studied till metric. After TCF, I got to college, and after college, I got admission in IBA in 2015 with the help of ADP, and I graduated from IBA in 2019 and doing the job currently.
Great, thank you. So I believe you've both benefited and giving back to ADP, the Alumni Development Program. So first, tell me about how ADP benefited you. How did you hear about ADP, and what was it like going through the program, the Alumni Development Program?
So in the winter of 2014, a group of students called TCF ambassadors at IBA, working for ADP, called me in IBA and prepare and helped me prepare for university admission test. So they taught me and several other TCF students English and math to clear aptitude test of different universities. I studied at ADP for around four and a half months. One of the important things that ADP did, beside helping us prepare for the test, IBA students taught us English and maths as part of their social responsibility. But one of the important things that ADP did beside teaching us was that allowing us to give maximum number of maximum number of attempts at IBA's test. So I gave IBA's test 4 times, twice for BBA, twice for computer science, and I didn't pay, and because I couldn't pay the admission entrance test fee, which was quite a lot. So at that time, so without giving entrance fee a single time, I was able to do this, and that was because of IBA's helping hand towards TCF and towards ADP. After the ADP prepared me for test, I got admission in IBA in 2015. But ADP's help did not stop there. They helped me present my case in front of financial committee in such a way that I got 75% scholarship from IBA. I studied throughout 4 years of my life with 100% scholarship with some help of TCF and IBA combined. And then I graduated from IBA in 2019. But that was what ADP did for me. Not It's not completed yet, but I after my admission in IBA, I volunteered for ADP after my first semester. So first I was section coordinator. I was promoted to deputy team lead, and then later team lead. I served as team lead for around one and a half year. Uh, a role of team lead in ADP is to guide TCF students and IBA students to come at a mutual agreement. So in a mutual environment where they both can learn. So I got to lead because of ADP. I got to lead being in my sophomore year, senior year student, IBA senior year students, and because of this leadership experience, I was able to qualify for an exchange program at University of Massachusetts in United States. So this is how ADP helped me developing my leadership experience and helping me go on an exchange program. That's the give and take relationship I had with ADP.
What a wonderful story. So not only did ADP get you into IBA, got you a scholarship, but then you gave back. But through the process of giving back, you found that the leadership skills that you developed also helped you grow as an individual and as a professional, and you were able to do this exchange program at the University of Massachusetts. So that's a great story, Asad. Tell me, when you graduated from TCF and when you graduated from IBA, those two moments must have been really proud moments for you and your family. I believe that there's a particular moment with your father where he was very proud that you may want to share with the audience here, and then also a moment that you were really proud that you want to share, about your admission to IBA and then your graduation from IBA. So please, if you wouldn't mind, share those details with us.
So my father's proudest moment, I would say, was when I showed him the fee structure of IBA. It was quite a lot, and my father, when looked at the fee structure and when looked at the amount I got in scholarship, he said to me that you just bought me a Corolla, because we couldn't have bought that with our savings, and the financial assistance, the fee I got from IBA is really helped my father and really made my father proud that I could win such a scholarship. And coming on to my proudest moment, I would say my convocation day was really something amazing. So first of all, ADP family at IBA made my day special. All of the ADP students who got into IBA were there, from Nadeem Hussain till our latest admission. All of them were there on our convocation day. And and one very unfortunate thing happened, that Mushtaq Chapra Saab, one of the co-founders of TCF, was a keynote speaker at our convocation. So during his address to the crowd, he mentioned that there are 2 TCF alumni sitting at in this graduation batch, and referring to us, and that was really something for me. And then afterwards, after convocation, we got to meet Mushtaq Chapra Saab at dinner in IBA, and he mentioned to us, me and Ghulam Waris, that you two have made me so much proud today. And that was at that point I was at the sky. That was highlight of the day for me.
Thank you so much, Asad, for your story, for sharing your story. And we wish you the best in your future endeavors. May you continue going beyond your expectations and our expectations. Thank you so much.
You.
Ji Adnan. It's a wonderful young man, isn't he?
Absolutely. It's such a heartwarming story. Well, Riaz, so we have, I think, a lot of examples like that came out of ADP and are all over. In fact, my company, Folio 3, for the last couple of years, we've done internship programs where we have TCF students who have come in from FAST and Ghulam Saq Khan Institute and LUMS and so on, who are coming in now, computer science students and students from other disciplines, really, really bright students. And it's just amazing to see these students who otherwise may not have had really much of a future, just making it, making their lives. So after ADP, Riaz, there has been a lot of innovation. There has been a lot of developments beyond that as well. TCF College, for example, and some of the other programs that TCF has put in place. So spend a few minutes and tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things at TCF is that we continue to innovate. And I think for some of our team members, perhaps too rapidly. But as I said, there's been lots happening since that period when ADP started. And if I'm to really synthesize, the three big things that have happened is ADP has grown very rapidly. Our intermediate program through which we can put kids through high school, grade 11 and 12 has expanded. And we've started something called TCF College. And I thought I'll give you and the audience a quick glimpse of these three bits. So on ADP, essentially, as I said earlier, this was these youngsters who came up with this opportunity, which is essentially a zero-cost opportunity, which brings together volunteers and those who really want to learn and creates a space to be able to do that. So the growth beyond that was with the huge admiration for their idea and for their effort to say, how can we embed that in a system so it can grow not just in one institute, but many more. So that's where the growth journey began. The program became more formal. You had engagement sessions at our schools to really get students interested. You had your very good friend, Arif Irfanullah, you can see on the slide. So, respected individuals who could go out and engage with the TCF students, tell them about this particular opportunity and inspire them to become part of it. We then started structural arrangements with universities. So our first MOUs were signed with IBA. So with the dean of IBA and with the management, we signed an MOU to be able to use their classrooms, not just the lawn, but use their classrooms. And the volunteer program became registered as IBA's own student development program. So that when the students are doing their summer internships in the first and the third year, in the first and the second year of their undergrad program, these are the programs that they can volunteer for, and those volunteer hours were recognized as credits. So, the ATP program became formalized within the ranks of those universities, and instead of lawns, we got access to classes. We got access to teachers in a more formal way, and you could see the numbers growing. Because of the university MOUs, there was again a level of formality which came in, which meant that the larger auditoriums became accessible. We could create partnerships with some of the other groups in the university around citizenship, for example. So this is one of those, which is about what does it mean to be a citizen. And this was a workshop that was being conducted for ADF students. And we had an universities a formal closing. So these are a couple of glimpses from those. And where we stand on that today, we have formal MOUs with IBA, both at university and city campus, one with LUMS, with Zabish, with IOBM, with a couple of other universities. So this is now grown into formally recognized programs by the universities through which they support their students, not just support, they encourage their students to volunteer. And when their students volunteer, and through this effort, TCF students get admitted into universities to support them financially as well to the degree that they can. So the first big development that really came about was that ADP grew and grew very rapidly. The second thing was that what we found as we again went through data that whilst one of the aspects which held back students was preparing for the university test, but the other thing that was holding back some students was really the ability to get good results in their grade 11, 12 examinations. Remember, you have physics, you have maths, you have chemistry. So for those who, like me, are slightly older folks, remember organic chemistry, remember calculus. Now, those are things that at age 16, 17, you can't do on your own. You need support. In Karachi in particular and Balochistan as well, there are many colleges, unfortunately government colleges, where classes don't happen. So students are left to fend for themselves. And if they can't afford private tuitions, then you have to do all of that on your own, which is a real uphill task. So What we saw in that landscape that there were good tuition academies who were running this professionally, and we had economies of scale. So we went to them and we said, we can bring you a whole, students by the dozens, if we can negotiate a volume discount as well as a discount for the fact that we are not for profit. So whereas the normal fee would have been 20,000, we negotiated at 12. Such that we were able to put a number of students through these programs. So you see Anis Hussain, two of its branches in Karachi. Then there is this other coaching center, which is called Adamji, which has a number of its branches across Karachi. So we signed MOUs with all of them, and this is what the inside of a coaching center looks like. So students can get help, particularly for the science subjects within their neighborhoods. So that's how that program really mushroomed. And now we have these MOUs, not just in Karachi, but in Hub, in Quetta, in Nawab Shah, in Hala, in many other towns inside, in the rural heartlands of Pakistan as well, whereby students can get that support with grade 11 and 12. The third and the last thing that I mentioned that we did was we established what we call TCF College. This came about in 2016. What we saw was that in and around Karachi, there were about 2,000 students who were completing their metric every year. And at the end of grade 10, there were about 200, 250 odd who were really bright. We've seen a model in South Africa of a similar vein where they take a set group of students in, they focus on ensuring that in grade 11 and 12 that they have great grades, that they are developed holistically, and they're able to get into top universities. So this was our three-pronged aim as well. We'll establish this college as a center of excellence. Our aim will be that on intermediate, the results should be excellent, that we should focus on the whole child development because they have to compete with the best when they come to university admissions in their interviews, group discussions, and so forth. And that we must get them into universities at a disproportionately high rate. So on the good grades, students went way beyond expectations. Karachi has something like 250 intermediate colleges which do grade 11 and 12. In the very first year, based on pass percentage, the TCF college was ranked 4. Better than your and my college, better than DJ college, better than many others that people about. And that was, great, as I said, it surprised us. We didn't expect that. So that part is really what close down the college. One of the things I do is we close the college for about a week every year, no academics, of children by doing workshops. One of the workshops that we started off with is music. So here you see a musician called Asif Sinan who teaches our children music for a good 4 or 5 days, at the end of which they do a performance. And you'll get a glimpse of that kind of performance today as well. We do cartooning. There is horticulture that happens on the grounds of our TCF college. You have live action sketching going along. In those things, you have mural painting. So this is our girls. On the next picture, as it arrives on your screen, you would see these are our girls painting our walls with the values of the TCF college. We had live painting going on, and you could see budding painters, sharpening their craft as that went on. What we also did was robotics. So we partnered with another organization that does robotics education in Pakistan, and these kids, made these robots and programmed them. And the instructors were very clear that when they've gone to high-end schools, they said, we haven't found the kids as sharp and as quick to learn as as street smart as some of the TCF college kids have been. We've given them training around public speaking. They go through programs of first aid response. They've done a bit of architectural understanding on how shapes come along. We have guest speakers coming in. So this young man that you see here is a TCF alumnus, Zafar Ali. Zafar is a graduate of a TCF school in Hawke's Bay. His father is a truck driver. This young man, again, came out of TCF, went to Lewis and Clark in the US, did his undergrad in political science, and is currently in the US doing his PhD in political science. He's very clear that politics is the answer. He's fully engaged. And he came back to the college to give a talk to our students. And that was an immensely inspiring talk for the youngsters. Then you have guest speakers, a very famous architect, Taimur Khan Mumtaz, Abbas Hussain, who's a very famous public speaker here in Karachi. We take our students to university so they can actually see what they could potentially aim for. Here is student visit to IBA, to the Indus Valley School of Arts. And then lastly, these students, when it comes to the next batch, it is not our faculty, not TCF representatives who go back into the community to present what TCF College is about. These students do it themselves. They encourage the next cohort to come in, and they are the ones who kind of chaperone them in and help them through their journey. Some of the students who have done really well, some of the achievements, this young kid has just won a fully funded Paragon scholarship to go for a youth development program in Turkey. It's an initiative based in South Africa, and they had 900 odd entries globally, and he was selected. This young girl, Kanza Muzaffar, there was a School of Tomorrow session happening led by Beacon House with 55 different countries. Here she was appearing as a panelist. There is this girls' summit called the Nanke Summit, which happens, and they train young women to be moderators. And two of our students, Anam and Sabahat, were selected and trained as and now are qualified moderators at that particular platform. So, there's lots that's happened on the student development part, really to bring them as individuals. The last part on university admissions, I shared with you that the overall rate when we started off was about 12%. At TCF College, the first year was 74, the next year is 75, and this year we are projecting at 79. The university admission cycle is not through, but that's the kind of rates that you're talking about. They're disproportionately high at the college. More than 3/4 of the kids get into university. So this is really where the college stands right now. And what I would really like to do is tell you a bit more about the kind of stories that have emerged. So, one particular story, and I know we're short on time, so I can go on with multiple stories, but I'll just share one. And that's of this young girl, Sabahat. Sabahat Kashif, she came from one of our campuses in Karachi near the sea. And this young girl came into college, really bright, but, somebody who needed to get more confidence. And through the student development part, through the efforts of a faculty, this really blossomed and came to her own. And she applied in LUMS, and through a very competitive process, she got into LUMS and for the computer science program. But there were issues at home. Her mother was very reluctant to send her daughter to Lahore. The family, doesn't have any family structures there, and for them to send their young daughter away from Karachi is something that has never happened in the community. And this is their eldest daughter. So it was a real issue. It required our staff, our college faculty to spend hours with the family to really work through every detail on how would the commute happen and what would she eat and how would she be safe and what does hostel life look like, to really ensure that we get to a place where the family would give their consent and Sabahat can come to study. And glad to say that Sabahat is now from memory in a 5th semester at LUMS and doing incredibly well. I was last in Lahore and I met her, and the glow on the girl's face is now different from the one that I saw, let's say, 3 years ago. Alhamdulillah. So this is where we've ended with phase 3. Our intermediate enrollment rate has shot up to 88%. Our university enrollment rate has shot up to 18%, double from what it was when we started. And we continue to work hard to improve that further.
Thank you, Riaz. What a heartwarming story. I have to say, based on my personal experiences as well, the TCF students that I've interacted with, I've took a little bit of time teaching some classes at a few schools. I've also interacted with the alums who've interned at my company. There is a real fire in them, right? I mean, they just they're going for it. Yeah, it's something that you don't see in many of our families, for example, our kids, for example. They know that they're being given this tremendous opportunity. And the ones that you see really coming forward are really going for it. And it's been a really wonderful opportunity that you've provided them through the ADP, through TCF College, through these coaching center programs and so forth. That marriage of opportunities to excel and this real fire and motivation that these students have, I think, is going to achieve great things, for Pakistan and for education amongst this segment in Pakistan. So, Riaz, tell me a little bit more about what's next. I think we've done a tremendous job so far. We've started the process of getting a lot of these students into colleges, into some of the top colleges in the country, which I think is a transformational experience for them and for their families and for the communities that they're part of. It would also be, once we sort of, get there, pretty transformational for industry in Pakistan, because one of the problems that I'm trying to solve, most of my staff is in Pakistan, and you find that while you have a lot of graduates, you don't have a lot of graduates who are sort of that quality that can really come in and help companies like ours compete at an international level. And so by dramatically expanding the number of students that are available, that are going to quality institutions, I think it makes Pakistani industry, it makes Pakistan a lot more competitive. But anyway, Riaz, what's next for, what are some of the dreams, aspirations going forward in terms of tertiary education within TCF?
So, Adan, lots more to do. Just have a look at this number at the bottom of the screen that says 20,461 students in this last 5-year period. And remember that number. So of the students who've gone in, I just want to also give you a sense on where are we going. So in terms of the various tiers, the top tier universities are taking about 31% of the students. And you can see management sciences, engineering, computer science is the widespread. But going back to that 20,000 number, where are we headed? This number which will now appear on your screen will give you an immediate sense as it appears. Yes. So if we look at our 2024 possible university enrollment, i.e. the students who will be ready to go into university that year who are currently in grade 8, just in that 1 year, there are 10,000 students. So it's an increasing pipeline coming through. So the number of students that are coming through is increasing. Their reach across the country is increasing. When TCF started off, it started off from some of the urban slums around Karachi, then Lahore, and then expanding more into the rural heartlands as well. So the clusters or the campuses which have matured have been around the urban slums more, but now as they're maturing, they're also maturing all across Pakistan in the rural heartlands as well. And that's where our vision from here on lies. So here on, as we look through that we're doing, but a couple of things that I thought I'll share here is if we are to reach every child, something like an ADP intervention or like a college, we can't do that physically. How can you use digital technology to number two, when it comes to career pathways, our mindset should not be just limited to one or two things. How can you do a vast range of things, entrepreneurship included, so that students can prosper by virtue of that? So on the first, delighted to report that ADP has already gone virtual. So all of that was happening through physical classes. Half of the program is already on Moodle and the other half is being put on Moodle. And these are some images of students accessing them from their homes. So the actual lessons as well as the testing now happening, again, bright young people chaperoned by some of your friends and the academic achievement program who have really helped put this through on a digital platform. And to these testing them in a whole variety of contexts in their own homes and being able to benefit from it. And the dream there really is, how do we take this across Pakistan? Because if we are able to if you're able to get the software and the connectivity right, we're experimenting with a number of ways to see what kind of devices and what kind of internet access requirements are required so that this can happen. The other bit is around opening those new horizons across the board. And there, we have MOUs with Aman Tech, any other vocational training institutes, so that, for those who are not able to get into tertiary, there are pathways which are very visibly available. And those pathways are in our range of things. For example, the picture at the bottom left and the top right of the screen that you see are two different collaborations that we have with two different organizations, Circle and Tech Karo, whereby they are teaching our girls how to code. So one is Tech Karo, and when it's girls coding. And through them, our girls are learning not only how to code, but they're also getting employment. So really, I think we're moving steadily along on a path whereby there should, inshallah, be many more options available and many other pathways for these children. But I'll just end this short slideshow by sharing something that comes to heart, that this is the beginning. There's so much more to be done. And I think our articulations can be at times weak, but somebody like Faisal has worded it wonderfully well. अभी गरानी ये शब में कमी नहीं आई, निजात दीदा और दिल की घड़ी नहीं आई, चले चलो कि वो मंजिल अभी नहीं आई.
Thank you so much, Riaz, particularly for that last poetry poem by Faiz.
Alhamdulillah.
All right. And now I think we'll turn it back to Fariha to wrap up the program.
Thank you so much, Adnan Saab and Riaz Saab, for such an in-depth analysis of the Alumni Development Program and the TCF College and everything. I think now we all have a very good idea of the extent to which TCF goes to support its alumni, from career counseling to helping prepare for the university entrance exams, even financially and much more. I really appreciate what you are doing for the youth of this country. And Asad, you are just an inspiration. Every time I see a TCF alumni pursue the dreams, your journey with the level of motivation and commitment, like Anand Sab said, you have the fire, and that is contagious because that makes us want to work harder to make your dreams come true. So all the best for the future. Um, After listening to stories like Asad, I think we all understand the importance and how critical tertiary education is for for all the students. If you want to support the university education of any of the TCF students, there are two ways to do it. One is contribution to the Bridge Fund. You can donate any amount to this fund, and this will be used to cover all the preliminary university expenses of the TCF students who are coming from the low income family. For example, the registration fees, the admission fees, till they get sponsored by a TCF donor who will sponsor their whole 4 years education. So basically, this fund will help to ensure that the student doesn't lose out in getting into university just because they can't afford to pay the basic initial expenses. Second is the scholarship fund. If you wish to sponsor the student's entire 4 years education, you can donate any amount from 2,500 US dollars to 8,000 US dollars. And the exact cost will depend on what program the student is in. For example, the cost of computer sciences versus business will vary, and which university the student is in. It could be a private or public university. You can also tell us your preference. If you want to support a student from a particular program or a particular university, that can be done as well. We will identify the student for you. We will share his or her profile with you. And we'll also be sharing their progress reports with you annually. So it really helps to build a connection with the student. You can see on the screen ways to donate. You can also go to the website, fill out the form, and send it to us. And while we are discussing ways to donate, I will also remind you to check with your employer. If your employer matches your donation to TCF USA, corporate matching is the most powerful tool to double the impact of your donation, and in some cases, triple. So do check with your employer about corporate matching. If you're not sure, you can go to the website. There's a tool called Match Finder, or just contact us, email us, and we'll let you know. And now we have a surprise performance by our TCF college students. So we can go and check that out, what they have in store for us.
खुदा तुझे किसी तूफान से आशना करते कि तेरे बहर की मौजों में इज़्तिराब नहीं, तुझे किताब से मुमकिन नहीं फिराक के तू किताब ख्वाह है मगर साहिबे किताब नहीं।
उम्मीद की किरणों से अक्सर अंधेरों में भी हो जाते हैं उजाले, मिल सकती है राहों को मंजिल।
चलते जाएं अगर हौसले संभाले,
गर्जन उठे ये सब दिए, रोशन होगा ये मुस्तकबिल। ये तो है तारे, सबकी आंखों के तारे, इनको कोई सवारे, इनको कोई निखारे। ये तो है तारे, सबकी आंखों के तारे, इनको कोई सवारे, इनको कोई निखारे।
बेअमल दिल हो तो जज्बात से क्या होता है, धरती बंजर हो तो बरसात से क्या होता है अमल लाजमी तकमीले तमन्ना के लिए, वरना रंगीन ख्यालात से क्या होता है।
मासूम सी आंखों में जितने
सपने हैं एक दिन ताबीरों में ढलेंगे। ये है यकीन, यही होना है कल।
हिम्मत से अपनी ये दुनिया जीत लेंगे।
हम ले चले ये कारवां, अब तो नहीं कोई मंजिल। ये तो है तारे, सबकी आंखों के तारे, इनको कोई सवारे, इनको कोई निखारे। ये तो है तारे, सबकी आंखों के तारे, इनको कोई सवारे, इनको कोई निखारे।
यहाँ पे आके ऐसा हो नहीं सकता कि फ्यूचर आपका आप सिक्योर ना हो। क्लासरूम से कोर्टयार्ड तक कोई ऐसी जगह नहीं जहाँ इल्म पे अपना जोर ना हो। कोई स्टूडेंट बसता नहीं है जिसका अलिफ से जोड़ ना हो। ऑर्डर हो या ह्यूमिलिटी, परसिवरेंस, इंटेग्रिटी, लीडरशिप के यहाँ बगैर कोई नहीं। हमको बनानी है एक नई दुनिया इस जहाँ में, जहाँ पे लिटरेसी 101 से दूर ना हो। आपके मेरे हम सब के फ्यूचर में कोई झोल ना हो। यस, वी आर गोइंग टू मेक द चेंज।
गर्जन उठे ये सब दिए, रोशन होगा ये मुस्तकबिल। ये तो है तारे, सबकी आंखों के तारे, इनको कोई सवारे, इनको कोई निखारे। ये तो है तारे, सबकी आंखों के तारे, इनको कोई सवारे, इनको कोई निखारे।
कहारी हो, गफ्फारी हो, कुद्दूसी हो, जबरूत, ये चार अनासिर हो तो बनता है मुसलमान।
What a wonderful and heartwarming raw performance by our TCF college students. Thank you to all the participants. It was amazing. It is said that education can change the future of those who will change the future of Pakistan. Most of these alumni are among the first in their families to get university education. TCF has almost more than 41,000 graduates to date, and 70 to 80% of these graduates are now pursuing higher studies. And the stats show that they will be earning income almost 4 to 5 times compared to those who don't have a degree. So just imagine the impact they will have 2 generations down the line. That's the power of education, and that's what TCF stands for. I'll urge all of you to come forth and play your part by helping these TCF students to get access to the best available tertiary education. So please donate. No donation is too small, and every dollar counts. That's all for today's session. In the end, I would just like to thank our speakers, Mr. Adnan Lavai, Mr. Riaz Kamlani, and Asad for your time and sharing your experiences and journey. And of course, our audience for taking out your time on a weekend. Stay safe and Allah Hafiz.